Hey guys, welcome to your first chemistry video. We're going to work on page 8 today where we're going to review rounding. So it's something you might have not done in a while, so we might have forgotten some things and we're just going to review together. So first we have to review the names of all the decimal places. So here's your decimal right here in the middle, and all of the spaces around it have names. So if we go to the left, you've got the ones place, you've got the tens place, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. So those are all the names on the left. If we go to the right, then we've got the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, and the 10,000ths. So notice that if we are looking on the right side, all of the names end in the ths. So that's how you know that you're over there. Okay? If it doesn't have that ending, then you would be on the left. Okay, so we're just going to review rounding some of the numbers to those specific places. So if I have this number and I want to round it to the tenths place, tenths means right here. So we're going to go 1 over there, which is right here at that 4. So I like to underline the place where I'm rounding to, and then I chop the number. Okay, because the number directly after the 4 is a 6, anything higher than 5 means that you need to round up. Okay, so that means I can't keep that 4, I need to turn that into a 5. So I'm going to keep the 0 in the point, and that number rounds to 0.5. Okay, now let's try to take the same number and round it to the hundredths place. That's the second spot over, so hundredths is here. So we're going to keep 2 numbers after the decimal. That's right here at the 6. So I underline that spot and chop my number. Okay? If I look directly after it, that's a 0. Because that's lower than 5, then your number is going to stay the same. You're not going to change anything. Okay? So I'm going to keep the 0 and the 4, and because I have a 0 on the other side, I'm also going to keep the 6. Chop everything else off, I get a 0.46. Alright, we're going to stay with the same number. Now we're going to round at the thousandths place, which is here. Okay, so in this number that falls at this 0. So underline the spot where you're rounding and chop the number. Directly after it is a 7. Because that's higher than 5, that means that you need to round up. Okay. The only number that I can round up, though, is the one that I've underlined. You have to keep the 0 and the point and the 4 and the 6. The only thing that I can change is that 0 that I underlined. That 0 will round up and become a 1. So that means my number becomes 0.461. Alright, let's stay with that same number and try one more. Now let's round at the 10,000ths place, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 after the decimal. So 1, 2, 3, 4 after the decimals right there at that 7. So underline that spot and chop it. Directly after it is an 8. Because that is higher than 5, that means that you are going to round up. Okay. Again, the only number that you can change is the number that you underlined, that 7. So you're going to keep the 0, the 4, the 6, the 0, but the 7 is going to round up to an 8, like that. Now, if you're feeling pretty good, and you're like, I got this, go on and keep working through the page. I'll put answers up, and you can kind of fast forward and check in as we need to. If this is still a little tricky for you, I'm going to walk through lots more examples, so no worries. Okay, if you're still with me, here is another number. We're going to work on rounding. Now we have a whole bunch of numbers on the left of the decimal. If you're not sure, the decimal point is right there because it's not written. Okay, the 10,000s place, I need to find where that is. So if you forgot, you can check your chart. 10,000s is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the left side of the decimal. So I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to stop my number at that 0. Okay? So I'm going to keep the 6 in front. I have to look directly afterwards. 3. If it's lower than 5, that means that your number is going to stay the same. So that 0 that's there, we're going to leave alone. So I'm going to keep the 6 in front, and I'm going to keep the 0. The problem is, these 4 numbers right here, because they are on the left of the decimal, anytime that you have a number on the left of the decimal, if you chop it off, you need to replace it with a 0. Otherwise, this original number was 603,000. We can't round that to 60. Those numbers aren't the same. So for the 3, the 8, the 9, and the 5 that I chopped off, I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Okay? Otherwise your number isn't going to be equal. And that's a little bit weird. Let's try some more of that. Now let's round at the thousands place. If you aren't sure where the thousands place is, then you can take a peek back up here. Thousands is 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the thousands place. You underline where you're rounding to and chop it. Okay? So I'm going to keep the 6 and the 0. I have to decide about that 3. Directly after it is an 8. Because 8 is higher than 5, then what you're going to do is you're going to round up. So that means I'm not going to keep that 3, I'm going to round it up to a 4. Okay? Now, we chopped off 3 numbers on the left side of the decimal, the 8, the 9, and the 5. We have to do this rule. We have to put in 3 zeros to replace those numbers, or it's not going to be close to what we originally started with. So anytime you're on the left side of the decimal, you have to put some zeros back in. Let's do some more practice with that. Let's try the hundreds place. The hundreds place, if you're not sure, you can take a peek up here. Hundreds is 1, 2, 3 to the left. So if I look in my number, there's 1, 2, 3 to the left of the decimal. I'm going to stop at that 8, and I'm going to chop my number right there. Okay? So keep everything in front. Keep the 6, the 0, the 3. Think about that 9. Because 9 is higher than a 5, this 8 is going to become a 9. We have to round it up. We also chopped off the 9 and the 5. Those get replaced with zeros. Alright, let's try one more. Last one, we want to round to the tens place. The tens place is right here, 2 over from the decimal. Chop your number. Okay? Keep everything in front. Keep the 6, the 0, the 3, the 8, but I need to think about that 9. Okay? That 9, because there's a 5 after it, is going to get rounded up. The problem is when 9 rounds up, it becomes a 10, and that can be a little bit tricky. So instead of thinking about that like a 9, it helps if you think about it like an 89. Use the number next to it. 89 would round up to 90. So what that means is I'm going to keep the 6, the 0, the 3, and instead of 89, I'm going to round that up to a 90. Right? Lastly, we chopped off this 5. That's on the left of the decimal. I have to put one more 0 back in for that. Alright, if you're feeling good after that example, go ahead and keep working on the page. If you want to do some more practice, I'm going to walk through the next one with you. Okay? So let's take this number, the 88.703, and round it to the tens place. The tens place is right here. So underline that spot and chop your number. Okay? Directly after that 8 is another 8. Because that is higher than 5, I am going to round up to a 9. Okay? Now here's where it's tricky. You only add zeros on the left of the decimal. Okay? So this 8 is on the left of the decimal, so that's going to become a 0. The 7 and the 0 and the 3 are all on the right hand side of the decimal. Do not fill anything else in for them. They stay gone. Let's try another one. Let's try to round this number to the ones place. So the ones place is here. Okay, so I'm going to chop my number. Directly after that is a 7, which means that we're going to round up. So I'm going to keep the first 8, but the second 8, because of this 7, is going to round up, and 8 rounds up to 9. Okay? For the 7, the 0, and the 3, they are all on the right-hand side of the decimal. You only have to add for things that are on the left. These numbers do not need to have zeros filled in for them. We can just chop them off and leave them gone. Alright, let's try on the other side. Let's try the tenths place now, which is right here at that 7, so underline that spot and chop your number. Okay? So, look directly after it. We see a 0. Because that's lower than 5, it means we're going to stay the same. So I'm going to keep the original 88. I'm going to put the decimal. This 0 means the 7 will stay. I am not going to add any zeros because the 0 and the 3 that we chopped off are on the right-hand side. You only add zeros for things on the left of the decimal. Alright, one more example. Now we're going to round at the hundredths place, which is right here at this 0. You're going to chop your number there. So, directly after it is a 3. That means that your number is going to stay and not round up. So keep the 88 and the point and the 7. This 3 means my 0 will stay. The 3 is on the right-hand side of the decimal. You only add zeros on the left-hand side. So this 3 is getting chopped off and it is going to stay gone. Alright, so now it's your turn. I want you to try these examples on the bottom, and when you're ready, then you can check out the answers that I'm going to put up. So try it, pause the video right now, and then check back with me. Alright, how you feeling? I'm going to put the answers up for you to check. How did you do? If you need any help, if you got something different, if you don't understand it, please go ask your teacher for help. This can be a little bit tricky, and so we are more than happy to help you. If we're good with this, grab your calculator and we're going to work on the second half of the page. Alright, have your calculator handy. Here's the problem with using a calculator. You are much smarter than your calculator. And if we just type some of these complicated things in, your calculator is pretty stupid and it's going to make you get the wrong answer. So the best tip that I can give you is don't type everything in all at once to your calculator. It's better to do this in little pieces. So if I get my calculator out, I just want to put in this piece first and hit equals. So you want to do 72 divided by 100 times 94, then hit equals. And my calculator says 67.68. Okay? Now hit clear on your calculator. Now we're going to do the next chunk. Put this into your calculator. 11 divided by 100 times 93. My calculator says 10.23 for that. Now clear it out. We're going to do the last piece. Now we're going to do this. We're going to do 17 divided by 100 times 95 and hit equals. My calculator says 16.15 for that. Now that you have all the pieces, those numbers were being added. So now all you have to do is just add those numbers up. When I do that, my calculator says 94.06. Now you need to take that number and round to the tenths place. Tenths is 1 right here on the right side of the decimal, so I'm going to underline that spot and chop it. I'm going to keep the 94 in front. This 6 directly afterwards means my 0 is going to round up. When I round up, that becomes a 1. The 6 is on the right hand side of the decimal, so you're going to chop it off and leave it gone. Number 2 has this weird symbol in it. This symbol means absolute value. You might have seen that in math class before. If you haven't or if you forgot, absolute value means you don't want to have any negative numbers. So all you're going to do is just you do this regular on your calculator, and if your calculator says something negative, just drop it off and just make it positive. Okay? We still do need to do this in small pieces though. So the first thing I want you to do is the top. Do 14 minus 16 and hit equals. My calculator says that that's -2. Okay? Because this is absolute value though, I'm just going to make the negative go away. That's all that means you have to do. Okay? Then we can do the next piece, and we can go down to the bottom, and we can do divided by 14 and times 100. So now you're ready to do 2 divided by 14 times 100. When I do that, my calculator gives me this really long number, 14.285711429. We're not going to use all of that. We're going to round that to the tenths place. Okay? That's right here at this 2, so I'm going to underline. I'm going to chop it. Okay? This 8 directly after it means that my 2 is going to round up. So I have to keep the original 14. You only get to change the number that you underlined. 2 will round up to a 3. Alright, how you doing? Let's do one more possible example. You have a couple of numbers here. The parentheses means that those numbers are being multiplied. Okay? But before you can multiply, see this subtraction right here? We want to take care of that first. So again, it's about doing this in little pieces. So first, let's do the 32 minus 14 in our calculators. When I do that, that equals 18. Now you're all set. Just multiply these other numbers together. So do 98 times 4.184 times 18. You're going to get a really long number, 7380.576, blah, blah, blah. That's a terrible 0. Let me fix that. I have to write neat, or I'm going to mess my math up. Okay. Now we're ready to round. We're going to round at the tens place. Tens is right here at this 8. I'm going to chop my number. So I'm going to keep the 7 and the 3. Directly after my 8 is a 0. Because that's less than 5, I'm going to keep my number. I'm not going to round it up, so I'm going to leave that 8 alone. Now, these numbers on the right-hand side of the decimal go away. The 0 on the left needs to stay. Okay? Because we chopped a 0 off on the left-hand side of the decimal, we have to put a 0 back. Alright, so now your job is see if you can do numbers 4 and 5 and 6. They're very similar to the examples that we just did. Then come back and check out the answers, and I'll go through them if you need any help. Okay, how'd you do? Here are the answers. Number 4, 62.8. Number 5, 3.230. And number 6, 0.328. If you had any trouble with any of those, I'm going to walk through them really quickly and see if I can help you out. In number 4, we are going to put all of these things in individually. So first I'm going to do 54 divided by 100 times 62. That gives me 33.48. Then I'm going to clear my calculator and just do this piece. 8 divided by 100 times 63, which my calculator says is 5.04. Then I'm going to do this piece, 38 divided by 100 times 64, and I get 24.32. These numbers were being added together, so we're going to add these answers together. When I do that, I get 62.84. And the last thing is we need to round to the tenths place, which is right here at the 8. Okay? So we kept the 6 and the 2, and this 4 afterwards means that we're not going to round the number up. We're going to leave it exactly the same. And because this 4 was on the right-hand side of the decimal, you do not need to fill in anything else for it. Alright, in number 5, we have this absolute value again. So what that means is if you get something negative, just throw the negative away. So first, I just want you to put this numerator into your calculator. So subtract those two numbers, and my calculator says negative 10. Because I have the absolute value in there, though, just get rid of the negative and you're done. Okay? Now you're ready to do the rest of the pieces. So you're going to divide by 309.6 and times 100. So you can just plug that into your calculator. When I do that, my calculator says 3.2299746, and we're just going to worry about our rounding. The thousandths place is 3 over 1, 2, 3. This one is tricky to round. Okay? So this 9 afterwards means that we have to round up. The problem is when a 9 rounds up, it becomes a 10, which gets a little weird. So think about it instead like a 29. If I rounded 29 up, it would become 30. If I keep the 3 and the point and the 2 in front, that's how I got my original answer. Notice everything else on the right-hand side we chopped off and we left gone. Okay? Alright, last one. In this one you have to take care of these two subtraction pieces first. Okay? So before you do any multiplication, plug 0.954 minus 0.403 in, and my calculator says that's 0.551, so that's gone. Do the same thing here, 109 minus 8.74. I get this. Okay. Now you have all the pieces, and you're just going to multiply those numbers together. This times this times this. When I do that, I get 0.32752, on and on and on. And we're going to round at the thousandths place, which is 3 over right here.
No.
That 7 that I have has a 5 after it. Because that is a 5, we need to round up. So the 7 is going to become an 8. If we keep everything in front, the 5 and the 9 on the end can get chopped off and they are left. Alright, that's it. Let us know if you have any questions.